Iran shamelessly exploits U.S. Palestine protests to cover up crackdown. The Islamic Republic regime in Iran is cynically exploiting the recent surge of student led pro Palestinian protests and sit ins across the United States and other Western countries in a blatant attempt to bolster its crumbling international reputation. Well, 150 members of Iran's parliament voiced support for the American student movement, and universities like Shiraz University offered to host expelled protesters. This rings entirely hollow given the regime's brutal crackdown on domestic dissent. Iran International noted that, quote, Khamenei may be the worst placed leader in the world to address this issue after he took to Twitter to proclaim, quote, in Western countries, people are coming out in huge numbers to chant slogans against Israel and America. US and Israel's reputation has been ruined. This hollow grandstanding ignores the regime's vicious suppression of free speech within Iran's borders. As pro Palestinian rallies raged in the West, the Iranian state media co opted protest slogans and imagery in a propagandistic attempt to falsely depict support for the movement. However, many Iranians called this out called out this quote astounding hypocrisy of a regime that imprisons its own students and academics for expressing dissent while praising their American counterparts. So, this is something that I knew I had to cover when I saw that Khamenei posted a video um, of of all the student protests. I think that would be a good thing to open with, Armin. It's embedded in this story.
Yeah, there's a it has a music in the background for the video that he posted. Should I play it without the music maybe?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can just
Okay, so
let's read the
so
full
this
tweet
is
and then
so this is Khamenei,
yeah.
the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran. He posted this tweet on his account, on his official account, and again, so read the tweet, read the caption, and then we'll play the video.
See what is happening in the world, in Western countries, in England and France, and in states across the US itself. People are coming out in huge numbers to chant slogans against Israel and America. US and Israel's reputation has been ruined. They truly have no solution.
Wow. And okay, so just imagine, I'm gonna mute this, but imagine in your mind like some really passionate, like I don't know, like some epic emotional music. Okay, just imagine that in your head. So it's just
Yeah, this
mm,
and
let me just play a little.
first of all, there's so many things I want to say about this. There's so many things I want to say about this. Oh, okay. First of all, they're offering admission to Shiraz University. Shiraz University is one of the top universities in the country, right?
Well, I mean, it used to be. I don't know if it is now. It I don't know. I'm not sure. I know it was because of the previous regime invested so much, like the Pahlavi dynasty invested so much in the education system and the universities, and back then they were some of the top universities in the world. So,
Yeah,
and
Sharif
ever
University
since
as
the
well.
Islamic, yeah, Shiraz University is that's where my dad got his medical degree, Shiraz University, right?
Oh.
So
Oh.
yeah. So I don't know if they're still as good as they used to be, but here, this is the tweet. So they they're providing, they're granting scholarships to these poor American students. You could go. So what is this? Are they? I don't understand. So the head of an Iranian internationally renowned university has expressed readiness to grant scholarships to the students expelled for pro-Palestine demonstrations in the United States and Europe. So guys, you could go as I don't know refugees or something. You could go from United States to Iran and go become a university. Iran will protect. You know what? I support this. Take them. Please go to Iran.
Yo,
Yes.
my other Iranian friends were saying the same thing. They're like, please
Yes.
go.
Go. Yes. Take these. Hey, I
Yo, I'm
didn't
not gonna
know. I
fight
didn't know.
The Houthis were also offering admissions to
Oh,
their universities,
no
and low
way.
key, I was
Oh,
like, I wasn't even sure that there still were universities in Yemen at this
yeah.
point. Also, considering the literacy rate, I was like, "You guys have that?" Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it. Okay, so this is something I wanted to talk about. For those of you who are not familiar with my background, like when I was in my early 20s, like I was a militant leftist, like Antifa anarchist type of person. And so I'm honest enough within myself to know that if I was in this age range and this was happening at the time that I was at school, like I would be one of these student protesters. I can say that openly just because I know myself well enough and also my previous behavior and what I believed that I would fall into this camp, right? And one of the things that started to wake me up was when I started studying like Islam out of curiosity. Um Somehow I ended up on a YouTube channel of this 12er Shia guy that supports the Islamic Republic. I think he's Pakistani, but he's like studying in the houses in Iran. And in his videos, he was talking about all this stuff and he was talking about death to America, and all these things. And I was like, wait a second. Like, I was in my city chanting death to America because of our border policies. And here's this guy who believes in executing gay people, and he's also saying death to America.
Yeah, that's
Meh, like it was a huge wake up call for me. It was a huge wake up call for me. I was like,
mm.
wait a second. Why do I have something like that in common with this person? And it caused a lot of self reflection for me. So this is how I know horseshoe theory is real. But because of my experience, I think I might be able to help unpack a lot of what's happening with these campus protests. But the last thing that I wanted to say before we move specifically from the Islamic Republic angle was that Iranians are freaking pissed. I mean, at the regime, but I mean, when are they not? But I mean, Khamenei over this specific issue because they will murder students dead in this street over doing a fraction of what these American students are doing. And they have a history of these crackdowns almost like once a decade since the regime's inception. We saw this in the 80s. We saw a horrific massacre in the 90s. Did you say Susanna learned a lot from the Shias? Okay, you know what? And we saw a lot of violence um, and an attack on the universities during the uprising and revolution in 2020 2023. So people are like, you're talking out of your ass. Like this is pure bullshit. If people were acting up, doing a fraction what these kids are doing, you would have no qualms sending them in to be murdered where they stand or exported off to black sites where they will be systematically tortured and R-worded. So it's all just bullshit.
I mean, people on this channel know about too much, right? Too much peacefully protested and wrote songs against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and now he has been sentenced to be executed. Again, we don't know yet if it's going to happen or not, but he has received a death sentence. And this is the same regime that is now saying, looking at these poor American students, none of them is getting even bruised. Like there's no scars, no nothing. The police, most of the time, is acting very professionally when it comes to removing the students from the place that they're not supposed to be legally. They're doing a very good job most of the time. And look at, like, if you actually look at the videos, you can see the level of professionalism that they have when it comes to making sure that they don't actually um, cause any injury to anybody that they're trying to remove from the area. And now the regime is acting like these poor students are being oppressed, while they shoot at protesters themselves. They shoot at protesters and they on purpose aim for their faces to, how many people in Iran got blind, lost their eyes because of,
Hundreds of people got
yeah,
blinded, intentionally blinded. And they also intentionally shoot women in
intentionally
the
blind.
breasts and genitals.
Yes, a lot of this is, this is a regime that has a lot of soldiers in the streets against people, and these soldiers, they have a lot of, I don't know, incel issues when it comes to their own forces. No, they do. That's so, and they have a lot of, I don't know, pent up psychological sexual tension, and you can see that why a lot of younger girls get shot at more than men, and the ones that many people consider to be like prettier girls get shot at more. And also a lot of times they aimed at the breast and the genitals. That shows that when it comes to IRGC forces and also the Nirei Tazami, there is just some major psychological issues when it comes to the people that the Islamic Republic uses against its own people, which is, I
Yeah,
don't know.
so like the Islamic Republic has no room to talk about violence against students when you can just go look up what happened in the 90s and you go look at the photos of the dormitories and you don't see, oh, a couple of encampments and tents got pulled down. You see blood on the floor that even an uneducated person can just look at and know within an instant that someone bled out and died there. Like
Mm,
it just massacre. Yeah. Um
yeah.
But there is so much that we need to talk about with these student protests, Armin. Like,
Yes.
if there is, do I expect a level of self reflection at this point? No. No, I do not. Maybe later. Maybe later there will be some self reflection. But right now, we have students openly, and also just it's being mainstreamed into the progressive movement as a whole, apparently, like praising the Houthis, who recently sentenced gay men to be stoned and crucified. Um, they're waving Hezbollah flags. There's students wearing literal Hamas, full blown Hamas headbands on Stanford campuses. People praising
Mm.
the Islamic Republic for doing a direct assault on Israel. Like and then when Israel is going to defend itself and send a strong deterrence message saying hands off Iran, which is just the same exact bullshit that they were pulling when Qasem Soleimani was assassinated. Meaning like he fought ISIS. I'm like, yeah, he uses Afghan child soldiers. Like, anyways,
You know, anytime somebody says Qasem Soleimani fought ISIS, remind them that so did Al Qaeda. So just remind them of that. Yeah.
I mean, okay, let me not get into that in a second. But like so when a lot of these student movements are now openly praising terrorists, do I expect them to have the moment of self-reflection that I had where I went, "Wait a second. I think maybe my sentiments are being used for something greater than myself in a way that in service of goals that I don't appreciate. Maybe I need to reevaluate the ideas that I hold and the political movements that I support if this is a pattern that I am seeing." See, guys, this is removing your ego, doing a critical evaluation, doing I think it was Rousseau who has the thought experiment where he talks about pouring all of his thoughts out on the floor like a bucket of apples and picking up one and then picking up another to discover which is rotten. Because if there is one rotten apple, the whole basket can turn rotten. And just the critical evaluation, purposefully seeking out a disagreeing voice, you know?
Mm,
And, do I expect that at this point? No, I don't at all. I don't at all. I don't expect anything from these students because regardless of what people want to say, these students are doing what is popular. And, should I just go into talking about my experience with these kinds of movements?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me give some context. When I was around 21, 22 was when Trump got elected, and I became very, very radicalized. And I became very radicalized partially because I was in the Bay Area and I was so outraged by what I saw and what I felt was wrong, and I couldn't tolerate it. And I didn't understand how all the other adults who felt like real adults, you don't feel like a real adult when you're 22. Um, were not doing something about it. But who did I see doing something about it? I saw Antifa radicals doing something about it. And um, I admired them because they were willing to put boots on the ground and knuckles behind what they believed in. A lot of people aren't willing to do that. And for a young person that doesn't really know what to do about something that you feel is completely wrong on a grand scale when you're in your country or in your community, that is very attractive because it seems like there's something that we can do. Um, so I became involved in this kind of community in the greater area of my city, and um, basically, it's so and along those lines, this is around the time of the whole abolish ICE movement. For those who are not aware, ICE is an immigration and customs enforcement agency in the U.S. And they were deporting people. And so basically, we became involved in an occupation of an ICE building down in the Department of Homeland Security offices in downtown San Francisco. And we took over the street in front of the DHS building for a week straight to the point that they couldn't go to work. They weren't sending their workers to go into the office at DHS. And it lasted about a week before the police came and arrested everyone. But it was a similar occupation. We took over this part of the street. We barricaded it, and there are people camping out there. And I never camped out because of them. Also, being completely honest, I wasn't nearly as hardcore as a lot of the other people. I was like, at the end of the day, I actually just want to go sleep in my bed. Wagon is saying, I remember this on TV. Yeah, I was there. So, and here's the thing, from the outside, you see these Antifa people, and we're all masked up, all in black bloc, which is like a tactic to avoid being identified. So if you're wondering about why these students are all wearing masks, it's because they're trying to not be identified, or why they're wrapping kefias around their face all the time. It's to not be identified, right? They don't want to be doxxed. Because we also had a lot of conspiracy theories about like far right extremists that were going to come and dox us, um, or the government. and so and but what I describe this as is like people from the outside see this as very intimidating. And in a sense, it really is because the threat of violence was real. But when you're on the inside, I always talk about it and describe it as anarchist day camp. Like, were there instances of violence? 100%. 100%. But most of the time, people were just chilling out. Somehow we started to like get couches out there, and we had our own little kitchen, and we'd just be like sitting out there, like reading radical revolutionary literature, sitting on the couch, smoking weed, playing soccer in the street, like just trying to hold the space and killing time. And then people from other like radical nonprofits would come out and give like little workshops on de-escalation and how to evade police and like all this stuff, right? And then we like have a space to like give speeches to each other about our feelings and like how we felt about this movement and all this stuff. So I actually made like pretty good friends there. But this is what I describe it as. It was anarchist day camp. Like most of the time we were just chilling around, like smoking weed, like reading books, like talking to each other about our ideas, um, painting signs that we would put out on the block that we occupied, like putting up banners. We would go find food and then go find homeless people to go like distribute the food to, um, like all this stuff. And however, there were instances of violence because there was this other group that was run by this like transgender woman in her 50s who was against communism and Marxism. And so we saw them as like far right radical extremists, and they were going to come one day to go like counter protest against us or something, or whatever. Anyways, these Antifa dudes went up and assaulted this trans woman who's running like this counter group. And here's the thing that I want to tell people, which is really important to understand. People like this will always put doctrine over the person. Doctrine over the person no matter what. Because these same types of people would go assault women if they don't feel comfortable with transgender women in the women's changing room. But they have no problem also going to punch a trans woman so hard her wig falls off because they think that she's a far right radical. So I need you to understand this about these people, is that every single identity category that they say that they care about will be thrown under the bus faster than you can snap your fingers if they believe that that person is in an obstacle to their ideology. It doesn't matter what group that they say that they're a part of, or what identity category that they say is protected and they basically treat as sacrosanct. They will go punch you so hard your wig falls off. Meanwhile, there are other trans people standing in the crowd just watching it being like, yeah, get her. So basically, over time, I always had all these questions and critical thoughts within my brain that I would suppress with what in the study of cult psychology or thought control is called thought terminating cliches, which basically means these preloaded kind of statements that tell yourself to shut down any critical thought from entering into your worldview. So, for example, one common thought terminating cliche would be if I heard like contradictory evidence or information, I would immediately discredit that information on the basis of the immutable characteristics of who it came from. So if there's criticism, it's very easy to go. It's very easy to go. Oh well, that came from a white straight cis man. I can discard all that information. I can throw out all of that information because of it came from a white cis straight man. Things like that. Um, and so these environments are not environments that allow people to have differing opinions at all. You get on the same page, and there is no room for people to ask for less radicalism. There's no room for it. There's no room for critical thought about what is being supported, the consequences of what groups are being supported. Like when I was in these environments, a lot of people were straight up commies. Okay, but when I was in high school, I took classes on Chinese history and what happened during the Cultural Revolution. And the whole thing about anarchism is like one principle is supposed to be very ironically about um, against forms of coercion. It's supposed to be an opposition of coercion. But then all these people are like commies. And I'm like, wait a second. What I know about communism involves a metric boatload of coercion. Hmm. 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 So situations like that. So there are going to be students who are silently thinking to themselves, wait, why are you supporting Hezbollah? I know a little bit about them, maybe, and I know how they harm like the people that they're ruling right now or in charge of. Like, hmm, hmm, but God help you if you say that out loud. God help you if you say that out loud. Because if you say that out loud, do you know what's going to happen? You are going to be dragged over the coals for every single perceived form of privilege you do or do not have as a basis to discredit you. If you have any perception of being in a place of privilege, they will use that to crucify you for any form of thought that falls outside their line. I want to make this very, very clear. I've lived this myself. I've seen this myself. And one other thing that I want to say that I think will help give people like some perspective is like I think a lot of these students are driven to do this because it makes them feel very purposeful. I saw one Iranian commentator that I follow saying that especially on these elite university campuses, like you don't see this as much on campuses of like, not the most elite in the country. This is a way for these students to launder their privilege laundering by pretending that they are putting themselves in the role of the victim, by conducting themselves in such a way that it requires intervention by law enforcement, in which they can then feign victimization and feign themselves being in the place of the oppressed, when really they are among the most elite at the most elite institutions in the world. So they're laundering their own privilege as a way to try to cleanse themselves of the permanent guilt of being among the privileged, which, according to these ideas that they've been taught, and I was taught, is one of the worst original sins that you can have. They're trying to cleanse themselves of original sin. The other thing that I want to talk about is that these kids are not doing something that's brave. They're doing what's popular. They're doing what's popular. Because what's not popular to do right now is to be a Zionist, openly a Zionist. And God help you if you're brave enough to openly say that on one of these campuses. We've seen people get assaulted. Oh, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. But what I want to point to is I want to speak from experience for a second. When I was like in these groups, in these spaces, I learned a very valuable lesson. And the valuable lesson I learned is what it feels like to be part of a group in a mass mobilization. And it plays into something that's part of your animal brain. Like I felt a sense of electric thrill throughout my body that is very distinct. And there's this feeling of unpredictability, and your adrenaline is pumping, and your nerves are like a live wire because you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's when I understood what the mob mentality is. That's what I understood what the mob mentality is, because I've been in a situation where all of a sudden violence breaks out, and before you know it, a bunch of people are getting assaulted, like like a few feet away. And so from that experience, like it's a physical sensation. Um, and it really takes over your like whole perception. And at the same time, you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And people need to understand how much that idea of being something bigger than yourself is so central as a psychological need that we have as part of our meaning making function. So these kids have cast themselves in the role in a meta narrative as the heroic oppressed that are standing up. And so everything that they do is justified, which is where Shia Islam plays in.
Yes.
But we're
Also,
not going to get into
but,
that.
but also this video, wanting to be the victim, being the victim gives you, it's a very powerful way of feeling like you matter, that you are part of, on the right side. And exactly, both Christianity and Shia Islam do such a amazing job in trying to provide you that sense of victimhood. But the modern version of that is wokeism also provides you with that sense that you are the victim, even if you are living very comfortable, privileged lives.
And it's a
When
it is a righteous victimhood. That's what
right,
people need to get. Um, and
which no, can we
yeah.
not skip this, because I think this is a good time to bring up this video.
This is so
I
good.
think
A
this
star
fits
is
this
born.
discussion. All right, so I should just play the whole thing from beginning to end, and then we can talk about it. Okay.
Why should the university be obligated
Wait, can you
to
turn it up? It's
provide
kind of quiet.
Provide some content. Yeah, what? I can't make it any louder. But
Okay.
yeah, I
So
can't
the
make it
context
louder. But
is that
context,
a
yeah.
bunch of Columbia students actually broke in and vandalized a building, and they were trying to occupy the building, but they don't say occupy, they say liberated, you guys. They have their own special lingo, they have their own special language, and this is actually coincidentally a cult tactic called loading the language. If you guys want to understand this, look up loading the language as a thought reform technique. Um, so this is a girl who came out to demand assistance from the Columbia
She's a PhD
facilities.
student. She's a PhD student. I want to also mention.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, so let's just watch this entire thing.
Why
What
should
are
the
Muad's next
university be
steps?
obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic. I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries. We want to take up this building. Now, would you please bring us food and water? And
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
But
violently.
they haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
and the grub
Humanitarian aid, Susie. They're asking for humanitarian aid.
Yo, you cannot be more embarrassing. I swear to God. Whew. Okay, and here's the thing. There's so much I want to talk about with this, Armin. Okay. Yeah, this is LARPing. This is cosplaying. Where the university is taking over the role of Israel as an oppressor. Like, it is absolute bullshit. Okay, so and credit where credit is due, because I saw so many Arab thought leaders that I follow and other like pro-Palestinian activists that I follow who were dragging these students over the coals for this. Like, they were like, humanitarian aid? Is this a fucking joke to you? Is this a game to you? I've had to live on humanitarian aid. This isn't voluntary. What you're doing is entirely voluntary. You dumb bitch. Like, it's this
You actually die
Here,
from
Armin,
dehydration.
die from dehydration. It's been less than 24 hours, and it's like, oh my God, I just don't even know what I'm gonna do. Okay, and so here's the thing. And this is why these students, I'm sorry, my thoughts are all over the place. One thing I wanted to say is that we need to realize that this is largely a distraction. Yes, these encampments are popping up all over the country, but per campus, this involves a couple hundred students, right? It's also worth pointing out that a lot of these, especially based on my experience, are going to involve people from outside the student body who are essentially infiltrating these movements to escalate the situation. So I can promise you, with places like PSU, Portland State University, that there are Antifa radicals who are not part of the student body, who are going in, co-opting the movement, escalating in terms of behavior, in terms of violence, in terms of tactics that the student body maybe would not have organically pushed themselves to the most. And this happened in Colombia, where this one dude apparently allegedly tried to hold a janitor hostage, and it turns out that this kid is a 4-year-old son of a millionaire living at like a $15 million Brooklyn, or what's the word that they use for it? Like the brownstone little penthouses or whatever, townhouses. Like it, and it's the imagery of it too. A like white 40-year-old son of a millionaire living a privileged life, leading a radical communist movement, holding a black man hostage for the sake of Gaza somehow. It's so predictable. That imagery is so predictable. This is just luxury beliefs. This is luxury beliefs. These are people that need to launder their own privilege in service of the ideology that they have married themselves to. Because they know that they're privileged, they know that they have it so good. So what is the only way that they can cleanse themselves of that privilege? By being the most radical. So, and it's just so predictable. So, but I think this is broadly a distraction because this involves like a couple hundred students per campus. Let me tell you something. These students tried to play this at universities in the South. The South of America? Yeah. Down in the South, they don't play with this. They do not play with this. It did not go over well when they tried to do this. When they tried to do this down in Southern universities. Okay? Because they don't tolerate this kind of misbehavior for the sake of misbehavior. It is mostly in progressive liberal Democrat run cities where they allow people to misbehave and actually incentivize people to misbehave because they don't hold them accountable for their behavior, which is law breaking. Because again, the South don't play with this. It's in these progressive cities where they're going to hem and haw and basically submit to them and try to negotiate with terrorists. No, I'm kidding. Because they're worried about their image and they're worried about their vote. The South, they don't care. They don't tolerate it. They're taking care of it. And I'm not trying to make this like a Democrat versus Republican thing. It's just a pattern that's so obvious before my face. Like I have to say it. It's so obvious. I have to say it. It's only in these progressive cities where they will tolerate this kind of misbehavior. And so I think this is a huge political distraction. And there are many Palestinian activists that I follow who are actively condemning these students. And I will tell you why. They're condemning these students because these students are actively distracting from what is happening to the actual Gazans actually dying under bombardment. What has everyone been talking about for the past 2 weeks? We've been talking about kids with terrorist memorabilia. We've been talking about kids with signs that tell Jews to go back to Poland. We've been talking about kids that are breaking into buildings, damaging property, vandalizing. We've been talking about kids that are assaulting people they think are Zionists, preventing Jews from walking around different parts of campus, putting wristbands on people to say that they're allowed to go in and out in certain spaces on campus that they pay for, depending on if they're anti-Zionist or not. Does anyone have any idea how like stomach churning that is for the Jewish community to see? Like, oh yeah, you're allowed to walk around certain areas. Your freedom of movement is restricted on depending on your beliefs and your feelings about a separate state in the country of Israel. And we're going to physically mark you so we know whether you're allowed to be in the space or not. Does anyone even understand how like as Jews, your stomach falls out of your body when you see that. It was so funny. I was talking out because my boyfriend doesn't really pay attention to a lot of things, but sometimes I have to rant, and I was talking about it. And I was describing this to him. He's like, "Wait, that's like super fascist." And I'm like, "Crazy, right? Who would have thought?" And okay, because I made it myself. I have so much to say about this. I literally made myself an outline. So I want people to understand that Palestinian activists, many of them, are condemning these students because they say you are squandering the once in a lifetime amount of sympathy that we have had towards our people and what we suffer. You are squandering a once in a generation opportunity because the media attention is being drawn away from what is actually happening to the people suffering. Instead, it's being put on these narcissistic students. And how do I know this is true? Because I don't follow like the ground operations of what's happening very closely because I'm not an expert, right? A lot of that doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Or like the details and specifics of it aren't going to be really meaningful to me. But over the past 6 months, I've generally had some idea, not in detail, but I've had some general idea about what's happening on the ground. Over the past 2 weeks, I have not, even though I followed this issue. It's completely faded out of the landscape. I'm like, you know what? Actually, I realized for the past 2 weeks, I don't actually know what's happening in Gaza right now. Because we're all talking about college students telling Jews to go back to Poland. Like, what the fuck? And here's the other thing. They're squandering this opportunity for the very people that are suffering the most. I almost cried about this last week because it made me so like upset thinking about how they're throwing away the sympathies for these civilians under the bus. Because here's what people need to understand. Americans are normal people. Like, we don't like to see suffering. We don't like to see people getting hurt. We don't like to see people getting bombed. We think that's bad. Don't do it. And we don't like to see kids getting killed. And so you see, and we can see this in polling data now, that there was massive support for the Palestinian people around December, and it's dropped off substantially. And it's because most Americans are just normal people who are trying to go about their day, trying to go to work, take care of their family. But when there are protesters screeching at them in moralistic fury, shutting down highways, shutting down the airports, shutting down, like their ability to go to work or get to a hospital. With really, like, how does that help anyone in Gaza? For the love of God, could someone tell me? Um, most Americans are just trying to take care of their families and drowning in debt. They're like, "Bitch, I need to get to work. I got interest payments." like, they're not going to tolerate that. They're going to be like, "You know what? I want to support whatever is not this absolute nonsense that makes my life worse." Full of people that don't seem friendly. Full of people that actually seem kind of awful because of their language and what they say and how they treat people. So this is why I would say I would not wish these allies upon my enemy. The Palestinian people do not deserve these allies. This is horrible. Because I sent a rant on Telegram, an audio recording to Armin, where I said, there are few things that are guaranteed in this life: death, taxes, and that leftists will destroy their own movement. We saw this live with Black Lives Matter. We're seeing it play out right now. So I predicted this from the beginning. And it's coming at the cost of the people that they say that they're doing all this for. It's freaking pathetic.
I'm going to play this other video. Do you want to read the caption? Because I think the caption is very telling.
Oh, yeah. So this is from our friend, Luai Ahmed. saying in 2020, they kneeled in front of Black people to prove that they're not racist. In 2024, they're kneeling to Allah to show that they're against genocide. Gen Z is like a South Park episode unfolding right in front of our eyes.
Right. Let me actually play it. This is which university? Do you know?
I believe this one is at UCLA, but you've seen this kind of behavior at several universities.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Me again. I'm here because I believe in freedom. You guys not sorry. I come from a place that
Not what?
never really been no Christian. I'm sorry to laugh at all my
Sure.
yeah. I'm 48 and I'm planning to go up there and say that the US doesn't feel like my home and I can't go. Under apartheid or I'm sure you guys on my side really that's my durable goal. I'm outside.
I don't know how submitting to an ideology which has ruined Gaza is pro-Gaza.
Because these students really think here, I'll walk you through the mentality. They really think that they're doing something. They really think that they're doing something. And they think that by doing this, they are standing in solidarity with these people. I don't think, like, a lot of people are posting on Twitter that they're like all converting to Islam. Maybe there's one or two. I would be very surprised if those people doing namaz are actually converting, but they think that they are helping to show that they are in solidarity with Palestinians, apparently not realizing that there's actually religious and ethnic diversity among them. So that's a point. But it's cosplay, guys. It's all cosplay. We need to understand this. And it's cringe, but it is what it is. And people need to understand that one thing that there's two other last points that I wanted to make is that people are talking about this as a free speech issue. And I think they're missing the forest for the trees a little bit. So there's 2 points. There's 2 major contentions I have with this, because obviously here in the An Atheist Republic, we take free expression like very seriously. And here's the thing. Campus encampments are not protected speech. Like, violating campus conduct is not protected speech. As a reference, I wanted to go check out what the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression had to say FIRE, because I'm a huge fan of FIRE, and they take a very principled stand on free speech, and they put out kind of their analysis of events like these. And they said, well, free expression and open inquiry, key elements for the transmission and advancement of knowledge, are values of paramount importance to a university. Institutions must be able to regulate on-campus expressive activity to ensure that it does not interfere with their primary educational and scholarly missions. It is not part of protected speech to disrupt the intention of the university, which is a learning environment. Second thing, it is against let's just take Columbia as an example, because there's lots of different universities doing this, right? It's against Columbia's rules of university conduct, disruptive behavior standards, university policy regarding tenting, disciplinary rules against vandalism and damage to property, unauthorized access or egregious rules such as Columbia's policy against harassment, and it's also not allowed according to a notice of encampment circulated by the university. So there's a difference between what is being said and then what is being done. And people are acting like the university's being forced to call in law enforcement to take care of this is inherently a free speech issue. There have been a few instances here or there, like what happened in Texas with what the government, what the governor ruled with anti-Semitism, like that I was not on board with. But in general, this is happening because of behavior and what is being done. The second point that I want to make is that this is another instance of how we can see how the double standard of free speech on college campuses, right? And this is what I think a lot of like liberals are getting pissed about that people who are not liberals are not understanding correctly. They're like, oh, you say you're liberal and you say you're all for free speech. Then why are you so like gung ho about the enforcement against these students? It's because of the double standard. And it is very easy to see who is the protected class and who is not the protected class. There was an instance that happened on a student campus where this is horrific, by the way. Someone put bananas on nooses in trees as apparently some sort of like anti-black racist thing. You know what happened? The FBI got involved as part of law enforcement. Like, law enforcement got called in on another campus for having posts for like Hail Dixie. But when it comes to people like openly calling for violence against Jews, holding signs pointing to Jewish students saying that the Al Qassam Brigade is going to come to them next, we're going to expect like no law enforcement? What are you talking about? You're openly inciting terrorist violence against some random fellow students. Like, so it's the hypocrisy that's driving me crazy. Like, universities over the past 2 decades, but especially over the past 5 to 10 years, have been so hyper vigilant about policing the expression not only of their students but of their faculty. There was an instance where a professor at USC faced disciplinary action because he studies Chinese linguistics and he said a Chinese word that is a actual word in Chinese that sounds like the N word in English. Because he said that out loud and it offended some students, he got disciplinary action against him in his role as a professor of Chinese linguistics. Are you stupid? Are you dumb? But suddenly, when it comes to this, and we're talking about this level of radicalized rhetoric, now the university cares about free speech. So it's so easy to see who is the protected class and who is not. And it just so happens that who is not in the protected class are the Jewish people. And just like no one's supposed to notice that? Absolute dog shit. Okay. Finally, my last point is that I know the American spirit well, my friend. And the American spirit is it smells like lawsuits in the morning, honey. Oh my God. This lawsuits are going to rain down upon these institutions like manna from the heavens. It is going. There is one thing that Americans love to do, sweetie, and it is a good old fashioned lawsuit. And there is so much evidence. Woo! And let me tell you something. I am excited for something called the discovery process. If this goes to court, the discovery process is going to be nasty. It's going to get nasty, y'all. So these institutions are going to have to settle for millions. They're going to have to settle for millions.
Being sued for what?
For basic, well, what in a legal term, what kind of jargon they would use, I don't know. But broadly speaking, discrimination against Jewish students. Like at UCLA, how are you going to allow people to be allowed access to certain parts of their campus or not, depending on if they subscribe to a political ideology or not, and allow students without permission from university administrators to continue to do this for long periods at a time? Give me a freaking break. You're not allowed to do that. But the universities are allowing it. So I don't know what kind of terminology you would use, but it's essentially dereliction of duty and gross negligence.
I will use the terminology of a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. That's the terminology I would use.
Isn't Title VI more about gender-based stuff, though?
It's about all here. So Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a federal law that prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs or activities that receive federal funding. And this Title VI applies to any entity that receives federal assistance, including grants, loans, and advances in federal funds, donations. So basically, given that many Jewish students have mentioned that they are being targeted and the university is not doing anything about it, and they feel and they're being told to just do this from home. I mean, these students have paid to be at that university, and they don't
And their
feel
rabbis
safe
are
there.
telling them to not come to campus because they're not safe. For shame.
Right.
Like, is there any self-reflection? Is there any urgency? Apparently not. It's disgusting.
Right. So this is what people don't understand about free speech. And the way I would like to think about it is to, when it comes to free speech, and also when the government or any of these institutions has the right to come limit the way you're expressing it, because you have the right to have an opinion and express that opinion, but that freedom does not apply to every way or method of applying it, right? So I could tell you that, hey, I'm a Muslim, I believe in Islam. If I take a megaphone and yell it into your ear, you cannot, I can be stopped, because the methodology, not all forms of expression, the expression itself is protected. Not all forms of protection are not protected, right? So when it comes to using different platforms, the easiest one to think about is a public park. Let's look at a public park, and then maybe after that go to a private garden, and then after that go to a university, to look at this in 4 levels, right? So in a public park, that's the easiest place to defend your free speech. Even there's limitations. Like if you're in a park and you want to go and tell people that you believe this and that, as long as you're not harassing people, your speech is protected. If you take a megaphone and harass people with it, then that speech that is not protected. If you want to do a protest, the whatever government body that is responsible for that park, whatever, should provide you with an easy way to get a permit for a protest. But again, that doesn't mean that you could do a protest at any time in any way. If you're blocking people, because you have a right to protest, but other people also have a right. It's a public park. It has been paid for by public funds. So the public has a right to have access to that park, have a right to go through that park. So you have to go through, the government is responsible to make it easy for you to get a permit to protest in that park. But if that process is easy enough, then you are responsible to go through that process. If you don't go through that process, your protest is illegal, and that does not violate your free speech, given that the government has provided you with a way to, hold on, let me make these points before you bring this up. Provided an easy way for you to be able to do your protest. If it's a private garden or a private university, then you have no rights. That whoever owns that university or that garden, unlike a park, has all the rights to be able to limit your expression, not just the methodology of your expression, but the expression itself. Like if I'm a private university, I could decide that I don't want anybody expressing any Islamic beliefs on my property. This is my private property, my private garden. You do not have the right to express. It's not just the methodology, it's also the speech itself. It's not a violation of your free speech if I decide that you don't get to say this here on my private property. When it comes now, if you move away from gardens and parks, if you go to universities, it's not, now we are talking about your right to freedom of expression at a public university. Not the private is easy. The private is easy to dismiss. But it's also, you have to also understand that the students have the right to be there and study without any one blocking them or anyone intimidating them. You have a right to freedom of speech, but the university is also obligated to make sure the other students have complete free access to that university, and this is not even bringing up Article 6 of the Civil Rights Act. This is just a university's duty to make sure the other students are capable of studying there without any intimidation. But the level 4 of this issue, if there's any signs that it's not just intimidation, it's intimidation based on ethnicity, gender, or belonging to a nation state or nationalism, anything like that, then the university this becomes a very a case for suing the university. Like if you're talking about suing university, people could now, on one side, people are saying you're going to sue the university for not letting them protest, which is nonsense. But from the other side, these universities could get into a lot of serious trouble if a lot of Jewish students decide to sue the university because of the violation of Article 6 of the Civil Rights Act. Again, a lot of people don't understand why these universities are so sensitive to make sure that as soon as there is any sign of racism or targeting of any group of people based on their associations with a certain sort of with a nation, it's just people say, like, we're not anti-Jew, we're just anti-Israel. Yeah, Title 6 of the Civil Rights Act includes that as well. It's not just ethnicity, okay? It's also based on race, color, national origin. So I mean, I don't believe you, a lot of you are anti-Jewish, but even if you were just anti-Israel, that would be intimidating to your Israeli students. And the university is legally obligated to clean up this mess. They're legally obligated. If they don't clean up this mess, they could be sued. This is the Civil Rights Act is not a joke. Like, this is something that universities have to abide by. But anyways,
Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And okay, here's the thing. People need to understand that, like, one part of this is very shocking because you're like, what are we dealing with these kids? Jesus Christ. I want to remind people to put things in perspective. In terms of recent polls that came out from Harvard Caps Harris, the US is supporting Israel at larger scale than they did in December. They're also supporting an invasion of Rafah, whichever way you feel about it. That's just what the polls are saying. And also, like I said, leftists will always kill their own movement. So part of me is like not even that concerned about it. But what I am concerned about is how much damage will be done on the way down. Like, look at the Islamic Republic. They're destroying their own movement. But look at the damage and cost that happened on the way down, right? And finally, like, these are not serious people. Obviously, they're not serious. If you're talking about how they need, humanitarian aid after being in a building for like 24 hours. These are not serious people. I literally have a thread that I keep saved of all these instances of leftists just being completely self-defeating. So one of them was like, if you're a communist or if you're a leftist, why don't you have a gun? And the thread was just filled with people saying, I don't have a gun because if I had it, I would use it on myself. Or another
oh my
one,
God, okay, be careful
another
with that
one.
language here on YouTube.
No, I'm just reporting what was being said. Another one was
Hey guys, make
someone,
sure you call if you need help. Call the hotlines.
of
Okay, but
course.
go on.
Another one was someone being like, a fascist worked out today. Have you worked out today? And that person being dragged over the coals by their own movement for being a body fascist, for saying that people should work out to stay fit so that they could actually be useful in the case of a socialist revolution.
Wow.
Like, these are not serious people. These are not serious people. They are literally too mentally ill to operate in society. And I think that's a function of why they're so resentful for everyone else that is able to get something for themselves. So, yeah, online leftists are hilariously incompetent. They're basically social dropouts. And I can say this also from experience of who I met in these spaces. The chronically low functioning. So again, am I worried about this in the US on a large scale over time? Currently, no. I think so poorly operating, I don't think they would actually be able to do anything meaningful. Am I worried about the damage on the way down? Yes. So in the US overall, I think we'll be fine. What I am worried about is these Islamists in Europe, which we will be talking about. Because see, here's the thing: in
Mm.
the US, we don't play with that. Um, in America, I'm gonna be honest, we kind of have a stereotype of Western Europeans low key being kind of pussies. So I don't know if you're prepared to not play with that. Be it as it may, let's go through our many super chats that we got.
We got around 20 super chats. 20 super chats. That's crazy. But yeah, let's go through them.
Um,
And some
you guys
comments.
got an hour-long Susie rant today. Oh my god, amazing. We're starting off on a great one. The Garkad Defense Systems.
I love
Amazing
this season.
name.
I love this
Iconic
season.
name. Can we make that like a crest? That'd be that like a logo of that would go so hard. Well, thank you for becoming
Yeah.
a member. Welcome to Satan's Minions.
We could
Shuvo.
make wait. Maybe we could make the how we were looking for a design for people who membership. We could make the Karkad tree the
Oh,
symbol for like a tiny tree that is growing and growing and growing, like different sizes of the tree. I think that would be
maybe.
beautiful. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Shuva was saying, yes, Daddy Khomeini, give us that scholarship so I can leave NYC and move to Shiraz. Okay, to be honest, I would love to live in Shiraz, though, unironically. I mean, under a
I'm half
different government.
Shirazi, by the way.
Exactly, it's beautiful. Gasian American celebrating his membership for 28 months. Thank you, my friend. I missed you. Saying Tiananmen and 89 and Cultural Revolution were both student-led. Yes, we have some examples of wonderful student-led movements,
Good, yeah.
like the movements to end racial segregation in America, or to help push to end apartheid in South Africa.
Which got us, yeah, we got student-led movements that got us the Civil Rights Act that actually these people are violating.
And then sometimes we have student-led movements, also low-key the Islamic Revolution in Iran, that lead to cultural purges and domestic terrorism. So, it's a mixed
Right.
bag.
I mean, the communist revolution in China was also student-led to some extent, when they were like
Yeah, exactly.
killing the teachers and stuff like that.
Yeah, like school children literally going freaking psycho.
Under profs, yeah.
Yeah. Angry Keyboard Warrior, thank you for the $5, said, I saw people saying that the pro-Palestine movement is just a rebranding of Black Lives Matter. What is your take on that? It's not rebranding. It's like how this broader ideology has just transformed into what is relevant for today, because Black Lives Matter isn't as relevant as it was 4 years ago. It's also way less popular than it was 5 years ago, including among the Black community, because many in the Black community identify that the leaders of Black Lives Matter are corrupt. So Reincarnation Entertainment, thank you for another super chat, saying Hamas and the Islamic Republic would have any gay student given the death penalty for being gay. Yeah, do I think people are actually go ahead.
So the Islamic Republic of Iran, what happens is that they don't actually execute you for being gay. They do execute you for having sexual intercourse. Like if you say that you're gay, I mean, you can't advertise being gay. But if you are gay, technically, if you act on it, then that will get you the death penalty, not just being gay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not defending them because that's evil, killing somebody for acting upon their gay urges. So
yeah.
But just wanted to be accurate.
These students better start learning Farsi. Angie Unier, thank you for the $5, saying, I don't think protesters should talk about their personal political opinions. Professors should talk about their personal political opinions. It's so unethical in my eyes. Basic understanding of power dynamic. I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think university is a place where you go to just get exposed to a whole different sets of idea. I think professors should be able to talk about their personal political opinions. I think actually the problem right now in universities is that only people with certain views get to mention their political opinions. The people on the other side are the ones that don't get to. Like people are giving their opinions, but it's cult-like. It's you agree with this opinion or you don't fit in and you get kicked out of that system. That's the actual problem there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as long as they're willing to be challenged on it and not deduct
Being challenged
academic.
there. The problem
Yeah.
is that you don't hear the other side. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, sweet message. Pakistan Defense Force said, "Hello, everyone. I wanted to apologize for my past behaviors. I've been getting some mental health treatment over the past few months, and I'm a lot better now and on ADHD medications." Saying, "Thanks, Dee. I'm sorry for being an idiot in the past. I wasn't mentally well, and I've been getting help recently through online therapists because I can't speak to any in Pakistan." We love to see the growth, Pakistani Defense Force. We love to see the growth. We appreciate it. So congratulations and good job. Keep taking care of yourself. For those who are not aware, Pakistani Defense Force is a historical hater in our community, or was.
No, he goes from being a lover to hater, and then keeps coming back and forth. It's an ebb and flow. So
yeah, I'm holding my breath for when it flips again.
I'm proud of you for taking care of yourself.
Regardless of if you continue to like us or not, proud of your personal growth.
Proud of you for taking care.
Yes. Erican, thank you for the super chat saying it depends on which form of communism. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to here. So I don't really like the thing as a whole.
Usually when you say depends, it's usually correct. Not always, but usually I would agree with somebody who starts a sentence with depends. HD
Drake gave us a $20 super chat saying, "Thank you for your testimony, Susanna. Let me testify." I too was part of the communist left, though, during the 90s, and I completely verify your experiences. I have experienced similar things. Thank you. It's very predictable. As Hope gave us $20. Wow, thank you. Saying, "From a therapist perspective, victimhood can also give you a perpetual excuse of not getting better." It's true, because this is also another part of cult psychology. This is an aspect of thought reform, is removing your locus of control from internal to external. Because if you have an internal locus of control, you feel empowered over your own environment to a certain extent. Edith gave us 15 shekels saying, I'm an Israeli living in Israel. Thank you guys for speaking the truth and calling out the hypocrisies. Blessings to you and your family." Thank you, Edith.
Thank you.
Hope gave us another super chat. Thank you. Saying, "University of Chicago, I live here," and on their Instagram, they are asking for Plan B, HIV tests, birth control, etc., as their humanitarian aid needed as essentials for their encampments. Actually, kind of this reminds me of something. Is that low-key, these encampments are a perfect environment for sexual assaults to happen. So it is a concern, a security concern. Lale Kashani. Hey, I like your little lion and sword emojis.
Sword,
Hell yeah.
yes.
Just gave us $5 and said
It's
hi.
missing its son.
Yeah.
Hi.
Little Shiro Rashid. Garkad Defense Systems gave 5 Atheist Republic memberships, and Kenny gifted 20 Atheist Republic memberships. Holy crap.
25.
I think that just unlocked a bunch of new emojis for us. Hell yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
we need to go make some. Sneakster. love the picture of Sneakster saying, "These students," thank you for the $20 as well. "These students align themselves with Islamists, talked about oppressors versus oppressed and colonizers versus colonized. The Western experiment has allowed them to do this stuff. Will end real quick if Islam gains the upper hand." It depends on the environment. Personally, I don't think Americans are we're so freaking like psycho about our country. We're like, we'd rather die on our feet than submit on our knees.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna have
I
to
think
come
the
take
West
it
is.
from me. If you have something to say,
I
you know where to find me. Like, we don't.
I know it doesn't seem like it these days. I genuinely think the West is strong, much stronger than a lot of people give it credit.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the West survived in Marxism. It will survive this.
And also, I think
Yeah.
we seem so like vulnerable or fragile because here's the thing, Armin, we actually live in societies that allow our dissenters to be open and flourish
Right.
versus others just crack down and don't even like allow that in the first place. So because we're actually allowing these people to just say it with their chest openly, we're like, oh my God. I mean, to a certain extent, we should say, oh my God. But I mean, we actually like give them the privilege of being able to do that. And others like, no, 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 no. No, no, no. We're shutting you
I
down right
just
now.
Yeah, people don't understand how much liberalism and what people refer to as Western values, how much it how useful and how much money it makes and how much is good for the economy. And at the end of the day, that will save it. That will save it. So again, we'll see.
Yeah. Kenny gave a super chat to thank Angel for a $100 super chat. Well, that's very nice. The super chat for the super chat.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Edith gave another 15 shekels, saying 75% of Gazans support Hamas and cooperate with them against IDF soldiers, and this is known. Some people are genuinely coerced and extorted into cooperating with Hamas, and they pay the price
No,
for
but
it.
it's no, but support for Hamas before October 7th in Gaza was low. Okay, but unfortunately, it increased in response to the October 7th. Now it's like an all-time high. So I was trying to, on the Atheist Republic channel, I was trying to use the fact that Gazans have a low support for Hamas as a way to promote some support for people in Gaza, right? But that narrative doesn't work anymore. I might have to try other ways to try to humanize the people in Gaza. But the fact is, like, that's true. We can't deny the fact that the support for Hamas in Gaza has now skyrocketed. I mean, there are exceptions. There are many people in Gaza who hate Hamas, but 25% of 2 million people, that's still a lot of people. I mean, you could point to them that there are there, but again, they are a minority. They're a big minority, but they're a minority.
Angry Keyboard Warrior gave a $5 super chat saying they cry about their free speech, but simultaneously want to silence and exclude Zionists, which is probably anyone who just doesn't praise Hamas. Yeah, the definition of Zionism is just going to like continuously expand into this amorphous, like meaningless thing, just like how they use the word fascist. Winnie the Pooh said, so you cannot be anti-Israel, but can you be anti-Iran? Double standards.
Right. First of all, you can be anti-Iran or anti-Israel as long as you want. Okay, we don't agree with you, but nobody can stop you for being anti any country, right? And also, we would disagree with you for being anti-Israel, and we would be disagreeing with you if you're anti-Iran as well. We're not. What makes people think that we're anti-Iran? We are anti the Islamic Republic of Iran because we are pro-Iran. We are. I mean, we have been saying this. You must be new here or not very smart, but we are pro every country. The reason why we're pro Israel is because we're pro every country. We just mentioned it about Israel more than other countries because Israel is threatened more than other countries. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're pro Iran.
Tarun gave us a $5 super chat, and he's referring to something that happened last week, saying, let me clarify what I meant to say last time, okay? I do not actually see myself as a fascist. I meant ultra-conservative, but that isn't the point here. Well, thank you for the clarification, Tarun. We got another one from Tarun saying, I never said let's be friends, okay? Sorry for all the attacks you faced. I condemn them, but this is about Israel, okay? We disagree on Hindufa, but on Israel, Let us not argue on this. For me, this is not a matter of Israel per se. This is a matter of liberal principles. I don't think that you seem to be aligned with me on those principles. So that is my main hesitation. I align with people of many different faith backgrounds, but we find space together on principles. And that's why I feel comfortable aligning with them, because we share the same values. I'm not convinced that because we both have an affinity or feel a need to defend Israel's right to exist, that we are aligned on values overarching. So I still
Wouldn't you
have
be
that.
comfortable? Wouldn't you be comfortable uniting with somebody over a specific topic, even though you don't share some values on some other topics? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you, if somebody seems to have the same values in this specific area, wouldn't you be able to work with them in that specific area, even though they don't share the same values in other areas?
It's on a case by case basis.
Mm. I
Yeah.
think I'm comfortable with doing that. I'm comfortable if somebody has contradictory values with me, but here we align. I'm comfortable working with them on that specific thing. Maybe actually it's a case by case. It depends on
It's a
what.
case by
You're
case
right. You're right.
basis,
It is a case by case basis. Yeah, I have to actually check.
because some of the values on the other side of things could be so bad that I can't.
So bad.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Okay, that's a good point.
Reincarnation Entertainment gave €5 to celebrate that we got 21 super chats saying Armin and Susanna are the
Yes.
best atheists in my opinion. Well, thank you. Oh my god.
Thank you.
Baphomet Buster gave us €6 saying, indeed, you're right, Susie. Islamists in Europe are super dangerous. They are aligning with Muslim Brotherhood and targeting all segments of society. And also Hizb
It's not
Tahrir.
just the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's not just the Muslim, but it's a whole bunch of things, right? There's like
Mhm.
Muslim Brotherhood is one of the organization. They're like, and then you have to also worry about the Shia side of coming from the Islamic Republic of Iran. There are many different groups that are trying to spread their Islamic ideologies in North America and Western Europe. And I'm glad that you're paying attention to Muslim Brotherhood, but please also know that the Islamic Republic of Iran is investing heavily in spreading its version of Islam in the Western world.
Oh yeah, they're putting in work. Secular Sakai, our lovely Sakai, just gave us a super sticker.
you.
Thank you, Sakai. I miss you. And Junior gave us a $2 super chat saying maybe the professors can challenge both sides equally. I mean, I see your point. It depends on the context. Like, professors have different teaching styles. I do agree that we need to take back our institution of academia. This is a huge problem of where this is all originating from. We need to take back the universities, like, in a serious way, to the point that I'm literally like, should we just defund the humanities? I'm straight up like, just defund the humanities. Like, who gives a fuck? Yeah, because there's a serious, it is a sickness. It is a sickness. HD Drake also gave another super chat saying, here's a super chat to thank the last two super chats.
So meta.
And excuse me, Unicorn gave another. Oh my god, the more super chats are coming in. I can't keep up. Unicorn
Thank
gave
you,
a super
guys.
chat saying, what are your thoughts on the Mao Zedong quote found on a chalkboard in Hamilton Hall after the police cleared it out? Long story short, like, again, these people have a revolutionary fetish, and so they're going to admire people that typify that to them. I dated a communist, and when I went to her house, her roommate had literal vintage Mao Zedong photo, like, pillows all over her bed. And again, me still being Antifa at the time, but having studied what happened in China, I was like, how can you, like, be a fan of Mao Zedong when, like, we say we're against coercion, and then, You have this, you're sleeping with vintage pillows of this man? What the fuck? Again, these little cracks inside my dogma, they started to just pile up more and more until the dam broke and free thought came roaring through the glorious purifying waters of free thought, my friends. So what are my thoughts on it? It's again more cosplay and more LARP. To be honest. Some people, I mean, but just because I'm saying it's cosplay and LARP doesn't mean that it shouldn't be taken seriously to a certain extent. Because again, like with the whole in 2020, like the whole abolish the police thing, some people are like, oh no, we don't really mean abolish the police. I'm like, no. I was running with people willing to put fists behind they believe abolish the police. Like these people mean what they say. A lot of times people like, I don't know what it is about like this kind of like very bleeding heart response that we get a lot in the Western world, like from liberals, quote unquote liberals, where it's like they're listening to like Hamas being like, yeah, we want to genocide all the Jews. And like, oh, they don't like really mean that. You know, it's not like they really mean that. Like, oh no, we don't really mean like defund the police. Like, I don't know why it's like when people tell you who they are, believe them, and somehow there's just like a whole swath of people that just have this attitude of like not wanting to believe them. I don't get it. Another super chat from Tarun saying India is the most Islamic harmed nation in the world. Mughals, Kashmir, partition, British looted us and now act like heroes for us and gave us AIT in return. Very harmful theory. So I'm pro Hind. That's fair. You know, I have no problem with you have I'm a big fan of like a very positive civic nationalism as long as it's on the basis of like values and not ethnic or religious identity. So
I would actually say that Islamic countries are the most Islamically harmed nations in the whole world.
yeah. Oh, actually, that's a good point. Yeah, I see. Do you want to explain that for people that aren't going to understand you?
Well, I mean, if you're still living under Sharia law, you're constantly being harmed by it every, day of your week.
Yeah.
Like the more Islam, the more harm. If your country is Islamic, the people of your country are being harmed by Islamic ideology more. So the more Islam you have, the more of a victim of Islam you are. So I think where do you find the most of Islam in Islamic countries?
Asian American gave us a super chat with Chinese characters in it. A super chat with Chinese characteristics. It says the Chinese phrase blank sped up. It's our Okay, my friend, why would you send this when you know I don't know how to pronounce this? He's doing this on purpose at ours. And then Shami gave us super chat saying, I'd like to thank the last 3 super chats. Vikram gave us a super chat saying, have you guys heard about Vosh's folder exposed? Yes, we have. We can't talk about that now because that's very off topic. I'm entirely unsurprised. This guy looks like a degenerate.
Hey, don't say that. Don't say that.
Why not? The older I get, the more I believe that degeneracy is a real thing. I swear to God.
Hey, Will, that's okay. Degeneracy is not a term I like to use. First of all, you can't judge people by their looks, and also degeneracy is a term that far right people use against all forms of sexual expression. So I don't like that. That's why I don't like that.
But some forms of sexual expressions are degenerate.
Hey, as long as you're not harming people. Hey, why are you judging people for their sexuality? I mean,
because I believe that some of them are harmful.
I know, but some of them are harmful, like the one that we just mentioned, for example, like the one that Vikram just mentioned. But it's used in a way, by a lot of far right people to categorize ones that are not harmful. That's why just say that these are harmful. Don't use their vocabulary. I don't like to use their vocabulary. Degenerate is not degenerate to me. Sounds like haram. Right? Just say harmful. Just say like illegal. Just say like harmful. They're harmful, not degenerate. Degenerate is the same as haram.
I was not
say
expecting Armin to be woke splaining me on this. Oh my god. Tarun give another super chat saying, so India never faced anything from never faced from Brits and Muslims anything. No one said that. No one said that.
No, we
Tarun.
didn't say that.
No one
We
said
didn't
that.
say
We're
that.
not saying that.
Yeah.
But thank you for the super chat.
Yeah. It was it was one of the greatest tragedies in history. What the Islamic invasion of India did. Like, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, we have mountains named after the number of Hindus that were killed in those invasions.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.